Okay, guys, it is 20 past 4. Pretty much my food should be ready now. Eat it and go to work. Start at 5. No, actually, that's right, I start at 5, which means the traffic's going to be a lot worse. Rather than starting at 8 or 7. Okay, I'll just have to take the food out, get up and go. I'm dressed for work. I'm dressed for work. Got my wet weather gear in the bag. You know how people say that, well, not all, but a lot of people say autistic people or neurodivergent people are like chameleons? I don't think so. Because they say, oh, you're like this, right? But here's what I think. I think that, it's pretty obvious. But the high majority of people, they take themselves out fully as like their personality in that fully, and then they just want to, they create this new thing, this new personality that's actually worth for their survival, or it, and it's based upon what everyone around them, like the newspaper and the radio and the magazine and the school board and their families and friends tell them is normal, and they create a personality that suits all these things. Yet and they do it to them fully, like they fully take themselves out, or they neglect themselves as like a 2 or 3 year old, and they're still like they haven't developed their true self since then, which is why they get a lot more emotional, a lot more easier, and then they say it's okay because that means they're bigger and tougher, and because there's more numbers of them than there are of people who are true to themselves, then there's going to be, neurotypicals and neurodivergents, then, how do I say it? That makes it okay. Because they say that we freak out, but the thing is, because that's the high majority of humanity, and then they'll gaslight, say it's not, because they'll pick up a little thing like, oh, you know what, sometimes I have an ice cream on Sunday, or I do something like that because I like that as a child, but everything else that made them, they haven't developed past then, which is why they still get emotional and aggressive, and they think it's okay because they have the majority backing them up, because they haven't developed, and that's why they're probably, because everyone else says this, so it's true. So if everyone else says that neurodivergent people don't have empathy, or neurodivergent people are like children, it must be true. But what I believe as to why, because everyone adapts to every situation in order to survive. I do my very best to be myself. But I believe that we betrayed ourselves to an extent, but we didn't take ourselves out fully. Yeah. But we had to in order to survive, but we couldn't. We couldn't take ourselves out because we chose not to. And then we ended up growing up, and now there's all these aspects of ourselves, because we're still connected to ourselves. There's all these aspects of ourselves that were betrayed, and because we are aware of that, because we didn't fully take ourselves out, and because that means that we feel connected to that. That's why people say I'm not the same person as I was 5 years ago. As for me, I say I'm a much more evolved person than what I was 5 years ago. Or I'm not the same person that I was a decade ago. I say I'm a much more evolved person, a much more mature, much more wiser, much more intelligent version of that person that was back then, because I didn't take myself out like the high majority of humanity does. I mean, growing up in order to survive, and with the whole school board thing and friends and family and newspaper, magazine, television programming, internet, but social media. Like, I joined Facebook when I was 23. Social media wasn't really a big thing, really. It was like, oh yeah, send an email to this person, wonder what they're up to on the weekend, and sometimes they replied, sometimes they didn't, but they barely ever replied to me. But I just caught up with people in person because I was used to it. So it is now 6:23, and I remember about the traffic. That means it's going to take about twice as long, so I better get up and going. But yeah, that's what I think. I think that we neurodivergent people, that's why we're neurodivergent, we betrayed ourselves to a certain extent, but we didn't put an end to ourselves like the high majority of people, like neurotypicals. And I think it just gets to the point where they forget that they've done that, so they've actually got themselves thinking that this person who is exactly the same as every other person, who's exactly the same of the majority of people, is them, and that the majority of people think this way. But I just think it was the pressuring from whoever, maybe those who rule this world, but some not. But yeah, they just gave in to the pressure. We did, to an extent, because I remember being saying like, oh, you know what, I remember people saying to me, oh, you know what, you might think that you're brave and you stand up for what you believe in, but you'll succumb to the pressure. You'll succumb to the pressure. Oh, you think you're big and strong, we got heaps more people on our side. You'll succumb to the pressure. And I knew people growing up that I actually had quite a lot in common with, that were, well, not a lot, but like we maybe played the same sports, we had things in common, and they were neurotypical. And then they weren't bullies or anything, but they turned into bullies and all this type of stuff. And so that's what I mean, because term autism was created like 100 years ago, but we've been around since the dawn of time. And there's 10 years ago they were saying it was 1 in every 150. Now they're saying it's like 1 in every 35. And then the fact is, you still have things in common with other people who aren't on that spectrum, So yeah, that's what I think. I just think we betrayed ourselves to a certain extent, and then we go back, because we're still connected to ourselves. We feel all the things that we betrayed, and we live through all the things that we betrayed when we heal ourselves. But we never took ourselves out completely like the high majority of people.